All right. The second part of this lesson is adding and subtracting complex numbers. And I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. The first way is by hand. We literally treat these just like they are like terms. Um, so as we're going through these problems, we're going to treat, uh, real numbers with real numbers and imaginary parts with imaginary parts. So we're going to going to show you how to do this, and I'm going to show you how to use a calculator. So when we're adding, just pay attention to this sign right here. When I'm adding, 4 plus -4 is 0, so the real part cancels. It'd be 0. -3 plus a +3 also cancels, so this whole thing would cancel out and be 0. Okay, we're just combining the real number with the real number and the imaginary with the imaginary. And that comes from a complex number that this is what the standard form of a complex number looks like, where we have a real part and we have the imaginary. Okay, so we add the real with the real, the imaginary with the imaginary. Now, when it's a subtraction problem, we're going to change it to addition, and then we change the sign of each term. So this really says 5 plus 2, which is 7, and -3 plus a -4, which is a -7i. Okay, so pay attention to that sign in the middle. If it's already a plus, I don't have to do anything. I just combine like terms. So it'll be 7 plus -3, which is 4. -2i plus a positive I is a minus I. So all of these would be my final answer. Now, like I said, I'm going to show you a simpler way to do this. If you go to, and I'll share this on the Google Classroom, if you go to this calculator, it's called Math Papa, uh, and I'm going to share this with you. If I type in exactly like it looks, 4 minus 3i, some parentheses, and then put in a plus, and then put in a -4 plus 3i, it's going to give you exact answer when you hit calculate it. So in all of these, we're going to use this Math Papa calculator. If you have a TI 83 or 84, I can show you how to use that when I get back next week. But for now, I'm going to ask you to use this specific calculator because it helps us add, subtract, multiply, and divide all of these complex numbers. Okay, so here we are multiplying. I'm going to do a couple by hand and then we're going to get the calculator out and do those. So understand when I multiply, I'm just distributing 3i times -5 is -15i. 3i times 2i is a plus 6i squared. This is a really important concept. Okay, we talked about this at the very beginning of the lesson. I said that you needed to know that I squared is equal to -1. So if I go back to this problem, I will never have I squared in my answer because I can always substitute a -1 in for that. So it'd be -15i plus 6 times -1, which would be -15i minus 6. And then now we write it as its standard form. So we would put -6 minus 15i. And again, if you got the calculator out and you typed in these two exact imaginary numbers, if I typed in a 3i, then I multiplied that by a -5 plus 2i, and I click calculate it, gives me the exact same thing that I just got here, and it puts it in standard form. So I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this right now. I'm going to go over this when I get back next week. But again, you should be able to enter all of these into the calculator. And I really hope that you have an understanding as to why, like when I multiply this example right here, 7 times 3, I just multiply the numbers. It gives me 21. But then I have I'm just going to go ahead and do this real quick. Okay, 7 times 3 is 21. 21, when I multiply I times I, it gives me I squared. And all I squared does is change the sign of the number because it's 21 times -1. I can always substitute that. So it'd be -21. So again, I know you can use a calculator. I know you can press buttons, so it kind of makes this section a lot easier. I'll probably do a little bit more explaining when I get back, but I don't want to spend a bunch of time on this because students usually use uh, the calculator. So we talked about conjugates before. A complex conjugate, all that we do is change the sign in the middle. Okay, and the reason that this is introduced is because when we have a division problem like this B here, I would have to, if I was doing it by hand, we would be doing this with we'd have to multiply top and bottom by the complex conjugates. We'd have to multiply top and bottom by 3 minus 4i. We're not going to spend time on that. We're going to get the calculator out, okay, and we're going to enter these in to the calculator. So for this part A, it would be 9 plus 12i, and I would divide that by 3i. I click calculate. Boom, gives me the answer 4 minus 3i is what I would put in as my final answer. Okay, so we're going to use the calculator for this. Let's make sure we can do another one. The second example here is 5 minus 2i. Whoops. 5 minus 2i. I would use a parentheses always. That's how complex numbers are written. I would use those parentheses, hit divided by, and 3 plus 4i in parentheses. You don't use parentheses. Sometimes the order of operations gets messed up. So I would just always put it in parentheses. Okay. And I do expect you to put this reduced form fraction 7 over 25 plus negative 26 over 25i. That's what you would type in as the answer for your homework. So, like I said, I'm going to post this calculator right here up on Google Classroom for you to use. This is the only calculator or your TI-84 that you'll be allowed to have open when we take the test. But give the homework a shot. You should be able to get these done. And I hope you guys have a great weekend.